I feel that the Western RPG genre has sort of been improving on the whole black and white thing. Like in the first KOTOR, like you said before, it's pretty much like Petted Kitten versus Save an Orphanage. But with KOTOR 2, I don't think it was a better game, but I think they did a better job with the storytelling. With, like,
except for the ending, where it didn't have one at all.
Prey was sort of like a different way of looking at the dark side. Or versus Mass Effect, like you're still good throughout the entire game. You have different means of doing it. Like explore the different.
The whole Paragon Renegade stuff. Yeah, I like that too. Also, I am waiting for that mod. It needs to come out immediately. And you, bonus.
I was just thinking, you guys are all talking about how you want games to be more not black and white, like where you're either extremely good or extremely evil, which is, makes sense because that's not what real world is like when you try to put in your real world value in the game usually. But I mean, and you've already said like the really hard thing about that is that it's like I know game programmers like they're at the college that I go to and working all the time, and it's incredibly hard to do that kind of thing. We've already talked about that. But I'm wondering if it would be, if it would be better if somehow you would be more punished if you chose the evil side. But if you were punished, would you even like that? Because technically that makes it hard to play.
It could end the game. Like if you were a mass murderer in Fallout and someone just like, hey, and just shot you, it'd be like game over. And then every time you go into that town, you just get popped.
I mean, if it was like, in reality, if you were evil in Fallout 3, then probably what would happen would be something like Grand Theft Auto 4 where you get a crap load of people after you. In which case, wouldn't that kind of, ruin Fallout 3?
Just get the tank, just drive. Alright.
Now for me on this. I really wish I had played a lot of these Western games, but I played a game called Legend of Dragoon that made it really hard for me to play non-Western. It made it really hard for me to play non-Squaresoft RPGs, and I'd love to talk more about it, but I can't.
The battle system was fun, though. It was really fun.
It's interesting how you mentioned that Western games seem to do it better. Final Fantasy VIII is a game that has been criticized a lot recently by certain internet critics, notably the Spoony One. And it's funny how you mentioned it because generally, too, when it comes to good and evil, they just kind of gloss over it. But there is a conversation near the end of Disc 1 where Squall is talking to Irvine Kinneas just before him, and he proceeds to talk about the nature of good and evil, and Squall pretty much dismisses the whole idea, saying he doesn't believe there's anything as any truth, there's anyone that could be absolute evil. It's just a matter of perspective. And it really rejects that concept, as I said, that it's intangible. They just fight for what they believe in, much as the final villain does. A lot of people like to criticize Ultimecia for not only having any plan at all, but she's actually a lot like the villain of Final Fantasy III. She simply wants to live.
That's more. I'd say that's more Kuja.
Yeah. Well, it could be argued, but I think it gets glossed over more, maybe because of various things. But it's related to his character, because a lot of people think Squall is somewhat emo, I guess, if you will. But I believe that conversation is one of the best in the history of Final Fantasy.
You know what's also a really good one? The one that he speaks, with the little pep talk he gives Irvine before he has to take the shot at the end of the first disc. That was awesome.
Don't worry if you miss, I'll take
her out. Okay, red shirt, or orange fluorescent fall autumn shirt.
If you want an example of a great branching storyline where you have much different endings and stuff like that, where the writers really know what they're doing, look at Chrono Cross, or like Chrono Trigger, or any other game.
There's like 100 endings in Chrono Trigger. It's crazy.
I mean, just think about that. The writers actually took the time to do that. And it wasn't really about good and evil. It was just basically a story. So you can still have good writing if you have like multiple branches and stuff. You just got to know how to.
I believe what I was gonna say. I believe what the gentleman over there said was, you can do it, but it's just hard.
Yeah,
okay. All right. You, the pink. You're next. Okay, I'm sorry. I can't hear you. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, if you get an ending, if you play a game and you get an ending that you don't like, and you really like the game, I don't see what's wrong with playing it over again. It is a lot of trouble, but it's a fun. If it's a fun game and it's worth it, then you know you get to see what's going on. Like, I have a friend who has played through Chrono Trigger every single, and I have no idea how he did that. Like, it's a new playthrough each time. I don't get it because it's great, but just it's freaking
Hopefully
like 2
you have a
hours.
new game plus. You know?
Yeah, I knew.
It's fun killing bosses in 2 hits.
All right, you.
The recent game that I was Mass Effect 2.
Mhm.
I kind of like it because it does punish like renegade characters.
Mhm.
You can literally go through the suicide and end up with only 2.
I really hope Garrus doesn't die when I play that game. I'll cry.
The other thing I also like is that like some of the quests also in it does punish it.
Mhm.
Because at like one point you're interrogating the guy, then you like pistol you punch him to death if you're not careful and not take the answer that you need.
Mhm.
And you're screwed.
Yeah, and then you just need to. You know, that reminded me of a part in KOTOR 2. When we're talking about all this morality stuff and all this evil stuff, like pistol whipping and interrogations, I thought I'd bring up something nice, kind of. Who here has played KOTOR 2, by the way? Ooh, that's a good amount of people. Remember the part when you're on Nar Shaddaa and that homeless person approaches you and you can give him money. And then you give him the money, and Kreia walks up and in her amazing party pooper sense is just like, why'd you do that? And then you can be like, oh, well, I figured, you know, he needed, you know, a little support and stuff. And then she goes on that huge monologue, the dream crusher, I like to call it, where she's like, well, if you give him that little bit of money, everyone else who didn't get that money is going to get jealous and beat him up. And it shows him getting like mugged and like murdered because he got like 100 credits. Like, talk about punishing people for bad stuff. That's punishing you for good stuff. It's a mind job.
A game I've been playing recently is Heavy Rain. And that's fantastic in the way of making decisions and having them affect you.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw you do it. It was cool.
For any characters that you make a decision incorrectly for, or what you thought would be the correct decision, they can die. And that's the end of that character.
Car crusher. Car crusher. Think about that.
And when that character dies, you can't continue with that until you start a new game. It's one of the games that I think does morality correctly. Or even if I think a character should do something, that might not be what that character is supposed to do, and then die.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one because I personally think that is the correct way to do it because it doesn't end the game, it just changes it. Because all this stuff can happen, like in Heavy Rain, certain characters can die, and they will die because there are some pretty tense moments in that. But it doesn't end the game, it just ends them. And the game is completely different. So your choices realistically affect the entire game, and it's crazy. Alright. Way in the back, is it? Yeah, you again. All right. You gotta give yourself a break, man.
This is actually a pretty good thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of games are a lot really prideful on making a storyline so solid that you have a few options to pull from. I think that you should be able to kind of have variations on what you do rather than some strong plot that you have to drag along.
Could you imagine what a nightmare that would be to make? It's like could you imagine how much of a nightmare that would be to make? It's like I want to steal this glass. I want to shout while I steal this glass. I want to quietly steal this glass. I want to pocket this glass. No.
I want to think she be aware of someone innocent should just be awesome.
Yeah, they would make it, then we'd all pirate it anyway.
Yeah, right.
Damn you, Ubisoft.
I wouldn't. I'd buy it. I'd buy it. Okay. One more, and then we're going to another question. Yeah, if I'd like to, I would like to.
We're having a good time.
It's my panel. All right. You in the gray.
Sort of one reason that storylines. Most of the games that have like good and evil stuff, the good and evil stuff usually only shows up in like the side quests or like 2 hours before the game ends, where it's sort of actually.
Where you can tell which ending you're going to get.
Yeah, it always splits right at the ending for almost every game. There's no like nothing like halfway through.
I guess I go back to KOTOR, where it's completely. Sorry, Bastel.